There we go. Good
Hi,
evening,
everybody.
everybody. It's Sinead and Tanya from iFabbo, and we wanted to say welcome to the Spreecast, our first of our legal series Spreecast. So, Tanya and I are super excited to kick this off tonight. Tanya is all the way dialed in from Dubai, and she's going to be working in the background because, as you can see, her connection isn't as strong as we would like it. But what we have tonight is an exciting night with Gregory Lemmons. We're going to bring Gregory on the air. Gregory Lemmons is an attorney for Lord Bertram Law Firm. We have his website right down here. And if you guys want to follow him, be sure to check him out on Twitter. And we're going to be chatting all night tonight. But without further ado, I'd like to bring on Gregory live. And we're going to take Tanya off screen, and Tanya's going to be answering your questions in the chat area. But without further ado, let's bring on Gregory.
Everyone.
Okay. Gregory, hello, welcome.
Hi, thanks. It's good to be here.
Yes, we're very excited. We've got a number of people watching tonight. This is obviously a hot topic for us bloggers and with all the changes
Hmm.
that happen so rapidly and especially with the law, we don't want to do anything illegal. So I think we're very excited
Right.
to chat with you tonight. So thank you for your time and thank you for helping us.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Great. So what we wanted to do, I think, let's kick off. I know that a lot of our members in our blogger network have questions about trademark. This is something that comes up over and over again. So just basics. Should every blogger
Sure.
trademark her blog's name? And what is a trademark by definition?
Sure. Well, that's a great question. Let's start with the basics. And a trademark, by definition, is a mark. It can be a symbol, a word that basically distinguishes your product from another person's product or another person's service. So it's a distinguishing mark, simply put, that is protectable by law.
Okay. So should a blogger trademark her name? Is it necessary?
Well, yes, I think that a blogger should trademark their name because it's probably, well, let me put it this way. How do you distinguish your blog from someone else's blog? It's a pretty basic question, but if you think about it, you tell them the name of your blog. Your name distinguishes your blog from someone else's blog. It's probably one of the most important aspects of the character of your blog, and we all know how unique and individual these blog names are. So you want to protect that and keep someone else from coming up with or using your name causing confusion.
Okay, got it. And I know that Jennifer Matthews, and I'm sorry, I don't know why there's an echo. I can hear it myself. But we have a question from Brooks Branded below. And actually,
Oh,
I'm gonna hide this question for a second because I'd like to continue to talk about trademarks. Because Jennifer
sure,
had a question about it, and that is, let me
sure.
just hide this. And Jennifer Matthews' question was, how long does a trademark take to get approved? Because she's going through LegalZoom and
Mm.
it's taking her forever.
Wow, that's a great question. And the answer to that is it does depend. I've gotten trademarks through the office as quick as 5 months, but it depends on how backed up the trademark examiner's office is. Because remember, this is a division of the federal government, and actual attorneys examine every application. Every single application gets an examiner. And there's only so many examiners. Another aspect is you have to make sure that your application is free from error. Errors always back up the application because then the trademark office will send you a notice, typically an office action or what they're called. And they're saying, you know what? your application has these errors and we'd like you to fix it. So that adds even more time. So a good rule of thumb is to give yourself half a year. But the good news about that is once your trademark is approved, it's retroactive to the date of filing.
Interesting.
Or the date you originally used your mark. So it's not as if you don't have that protection as it's in the office as long as it gets approved.
Okay. So then, does a blogger have legal rights if she fails to trademark her blog's name? What happens if it gets rejected?
That's another great question. And the simple answer to that is these protections make it easier for you to have recourse if someone were to infringe upon your name. Like, for example, iFabbo is trademarked. So let's say it wasn't. Well, if I were to use iFabbo and just say, okay, I'm going to create a blog and I'm going to call it iFabbo. Well, iFabbo would have recourse against me because they could prove that they were using the mark openly and notoriously before I did my filing. So they could challenge it. So you're not without your rights and options. It's just, it makes it so much easier, okay, when you have that protection already there.
Got it. And I see that Jess asked a question via the chat. Is it worth it for medium-sized bloggers who aren't professional or, aren't full-time bloggers? Is it worth that investment? Because I know, I don't know how much the average cost is to trademark. Do you have any idea? And do you think it's
Oh, I can
still
tell
worth
you about
it?
it. Sure. Sure. Well, the cost of trademarking, it depends on what type of application you file. But let's say you do the very basic electronic filing, which is $275. And then you can do the regular filing, which gives you a little bit more options, which is $325. And if you hire an attorney to help you with the process, which most people do, that fee ranges from law firm to law firm. But I'll ask you this: if is it worth it to you to protect your blog or your baby? If you don't think that you would be bothered much if someone were to use your name or your blog's name and create their own blog, then the answer to that question is no. Maybe it wouldn't be worth it to you. But if you think that's something that would bother you, which I think most bloggers watching would probably say, yeah, I wouldn't want another blogger using my name for their blogs, kind of like wearing the same dress to a party. I would say definitely it's worth that investment.
Okay, and we have a great question. This came from, oh, sorry, Kim, where did that question go? Hold on. And forgive me, I am echoing. I can't figure out why it's doing that. But Kimberly Purcell had a question for me via Facebook. And it was, is my blog an entity that I own? Like, can she sell it? Can she will it to somebody? Can she use it as collateral? Can it ever be taken away as
Mm-hmm.
an asset? Is it something that an entity that she owns?
Well, that depends on how she has the blog set up. Okay, if you incorporate, some blogs are companies, like for example, like the Huffington Post, for example. It's not just a simple blog. It's part of a company, so it's an asset, and assets can be willed and traded and treated as any other um, piece of property, right? But your blog, everything that you've written on it and everything that you've poured into it, if you want to give it to someone else, as you can only give the rights you have within it, right? And I know that that may sound a little convoluted, but um, you can only give what you own. So it's kind of like you can't, like, for example, like if your blog is housed on a server, right, at like GoDaddy or you can't you can only give what you own. I think it's the simplest way to put it without getting too complex.
Okay.
But that's a great question and a tricky one because it would also vary from state to state.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Okay. And we have a question from Caroline. What is the best way to
mhm.
go about trademarking your name? Should you rely on a source like LegalZoom, or is it better to go through someone like you as an attorney? I mean, obviously, some bloggers can only afford so much, but how do you feel about the two?
Well, understand that you are asking an attorney,
Yeah.
and as an attorney, I will tell you to use a professional to do legal work. Um, Many people, if you feel comfortable using LegalZoom, then use it. But I would advise it's best to have an attorney do it just in case there's problems with the search, there's problems with office actions that may arise. It may save you in the long run to have it done properly the first time around.
Makes sense. Jennifer has another question. What's the difference between a service mark and a trademark?
That's another good question, and it's basically the way in which they're used. Um, if you're providing a service or if you're providing goods, simple as that.
Okay, so why would I need a service mark? If I'm a blogger, why would I need one?
Well, I don't want you to get caught up in the distinctions between service and trademark.
Okay,
Um, for our intents and purposes, just think in terms of trademarks. It's not a distinction that's going to bear impact on your trademark process to get your blogs protected.
okay. And let's see. I think Jazz has another question. She said, I had a
Yes.
PR agency using my content for their own purposes without giving credit back to me.
Hmm.
Is there anything I can do to prevent this from happening again? Wow.
Well, yes. Anything you write in your blog, copyright arises through original works of authorship, which can be expressed in a tangible form, and that's fancy words for saying you wrote it, right? You wrote this content. If it's original content and you wrote it, then by law you own that content, and people need your permission before they use that content. They're using copyrighted content. So to prevent this from happening again, you could, as part of your terms of use for your blog, you can say that all rights are reserved, and you must ask for your permission if you want to use any parts of this blog for another purpose or republishing it even.
Does that need to be disclosed under every blog post to be safe, or is that something you could put in the about me, or, like you said, some bloggers do have a term of service, tab on their blog.
Sure,
What do you
sure,
recommend?
sure. I think you should put it as openly and notoriously as possible without disrupting the flow of your blog. It could even be a line at the end of each piece you write, like at the bottom of your signature, like bloggers put, the name of the blog and their name and all rights reserved. But even that's not technically necessary. I do advise doing it because it makes it easier. No one can claim as a defense that, oh, well, I didn't know it was copyrighted or protected.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're using your written content, then they need to ask permission for that. They can't just copy it and use it like that.
Okay, got it. We have a question. Let's kind of switch things up right now, talking about FTC and disclosure. Xenia asks,
Hmm.
when writing an FTC disclosure for a sponsored post, what
Hmm.
should the wording be like? Is
Hmm.
there specific wording that the FTC asks you to include, or is this kind of
Well,
general?
this is one of those areas, and this is I can't tell you the exact language to use. That I cannot do. But what I can do is tell you the intent of this law. Right? They want to make sure that people reading your blog understand that if you've received any goods, that's disclosed, right? That the motivations, that there's any other motivations behind you talking about this good, that it be disclosed to the public, because what they're worried about is people sidestepping truth in advertising laws through blogs. So, I mean, imagine if you were a large, government entity trying to protect freedom of information to the populace. So you want to make it as open and notorious and obvious. I know I keep using that word, but open and notorious, but it just means be forthright, be open, and you won't run into any problems,
Got it.
or you shouldn't.
Okay. So bloggers can write their own disclosure policy, basically, as long as they're being upfront, kind of not just
They're being upfront, honest, open, and if you're uncomfortable with it, you may want to seek the help of an attorney or another blogger who has done it or who has gotten into trouble even with the government about it, and see why did these people get into trouble, and avoid doing what they did. Those are all other options, but just be cognizant of it. It is very important.
Does the FTC require bloggers to disclose every single product that they receive?
I think it's a good idea that they do.
Okay.
If you're writing a blog about it and you're receiving compensation for it, then you should disclose it. I'm just keeping it simple, simple and as safe as possible.
Okay.
Right. I don't like for you to dance on the line, right, or get as close to the line as you possibly can, because it's in those cases that you can get that you as a blogger can get burned, and I don't want to see that with any of you.
Okay. What about products that they've received? They're not getting paid for it, but they've received it for either feedback or whatever. Same thing, just disclose that they did receive it as a PR sample, that they weren't necessarily being paid for it, but they did receive it as a PR sample.
Sure. I think that's fine. I think there's no problems in disclosing things like that you get, because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And again, keep in mind too, it's think about the importance of value. Like, let's say a designer sent you something that's worth a great deal of money, right?
Right.
Something that's pretty substantial. You're definitely going to want to disclose that. I don't want to say what the FTC will and won't do, because I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
They'll, so just steer clear of them. It's the best way to do it, and just follow their, just disclose.
Okay, so because I just saw Jennifer's question, so I do want to ask it since we're on this topic. Jennifer basically asked the same type of question. If I recommend a product or a service that I love, and I have a personal connection to the owner of that product or that service, but she's not receiving compensation, does she need to disclose that information? I personally think no, there's no reason to.
Well, right. That under the law, now that's more clear cut. So let's say you have a friend, right, and they have a company,
Yeah,
and you're not getting any sort of benefit from this friend, and you're promoting your friend's company. I think that's fine. I mean, you're not going to get slapped in the hand from that from a legal perspective, but I do think that just from a blogger integrity's perspective, you might want to disclose that this person is your friend, depending on how close the relationship is. And your readers may respect you more for it. But that's just my personal opinion. That's not so much a legal opinion.
Got it.
So
let's kind of change things up a little bit and kind of foray into images and watermarks and things like that.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Xenia has a question. Let's put it up on screen. If I write all images of the property of, whoever, unless otherwise stated, do not use without permission, does that really help? Does that help legal standing, I guess, if somebody does then use her images without permission?
Right. Well, not really. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but you have to understand that those photos are copyrighted. and the owner of any photo you use, has recourse. So the best thing to do with photos, I tell people this all the time, you want to watermark your photos, and you want to put the owner of the copyright on the photo. Just like, Getty Images does. You always see at the bottom of the little images, it says, Getty Images.
Yeah.
So well, whoa, I don't want to touch this, because they're notorious for going after people. So
I know.
yes, it helps, but I think it's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit easier for you, I think, and it's also won't interrupt your blog's flow so much. You don't want, your blog looking like a legal contract, right? It disrupts the flow.
Yeah.
So put it as a little watermark on the actual picture. So if someone were to take it, you can say, hey,
Yeah.
that
Well, that
you're using my
actually
picture.
just went right
All
into
right.
Carolyn's question, which I thought was great. Should
Hey,
bloggers be
Carolyn.
watermarking their pictures with their blog website?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's also good for just branding of your site. Think about it. The more you have your blog's name, beyond having it on the top of the blog, just to remind people, maybe subliminally a little bit, that all these good images, and they'll associate the images with your blog.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I definitely recommend that.
Okay. Perfect. So obviously the watermarks help. The disclosure. Is there anything else a blogger can do to protect his or her images? Anything that we're not thinking about or haven't mentioned right now?
Well, make sure, and this is what I always like to say too, make sure if you're using an image, make sure you get it from a reputable source. There are a lot of places out there that have images that you can use, like stock images, if you want to use those, or if you're going with a photographer, go with one you trust, and make sure that they're the ones who actually took the photos. And also have contracts in place, just simple ones, that assign the rights of all the pictures you're using to you. Just make sure you can trace the line of ownership to you, and it'll make your life a lot easier, because you can own these pictures. And someone asked earlier, can they pass things on like their blog? Well, you can definitely pass your pictures on.
Yeah. Okay.
You own the pictures.
Yeah.
You can pass along things you own. So
Got it.
but yeah. So
Awesome.
don't want to ramble.
No, awesome. And I just wanted to say really fast for all the viewers out there watching this Spreecast, if anybody would like to come on camera and talk to Gregory directly or ask Gregory questions, you're welcome. You're
Be
welcome.
shy. I won't bite.
I know a lot of us are sitting in our PJs at home, but you are more than welcome to come on air with us. And so let's have a look at questions. Oh, Deanna has an interesting question, actually, since we talked about watermarks, because you're saying, should I watermark? Her husband is a photographer.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah. So
Yes.
who's better? Should you do the blog name or his
Wow.
name as the photographer?
Wow, this is interesting.
Yeah.
You bring up several issues because, for one, because it's your husband. Well, I'm in a community property state, California.
We're in California.
Where right. I'm in California right now. But the simple answer to that question is yes. I'd like you to watermark those photos with your blog's name. And you could even use your husband's name because he's the one that took the pictures. In your case, it's actually a lot easier because you have such a close relationship with the photographer. I mean, but yes, in the case of where a husband, I love these questions, by the way, where a husband is the photographer, still follow the same protocol, okay? Even though he's your husband. That goes for if the photographer's your best friend, the photographer's your father or your mother. You still want to get those rights assigned to you and your blog. And you can compensate your husband for that any way you wish. He can give them to you, transfer them to you, as long as it's a rightful assignment.
Great.
A legal assignment, and use the pictures.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. We're going to go back because we've got some more questions on trademark
Let's go
again.
back.
Obviously, this is a hot topic.
Sure.
Isabel asks, she says, I'm thinking of launching a second blog and would like to trademark the name of the site. But do I wait to do it when the site is launched, or should I do it before? So.
Oh no, well let's talk about there's several ways to file your mark. That's an excellent question, Isabel. And you can file what's called an intent to use mark, meaning you're basically telling the government, well, I'm going to use this. Okay, so they still allow you to proceed forward, but then once you actually use it, you let them know, and it changes to the regular like mark. But yeah, you can file an intent to use mark. In your case, I would say first of all, be sure that you secure the name of the site first, right? And the website, make sure the domain's okay, make sure all of that is on the up and up. And then once that foundation is laid, you may want to speak to an attorney about doing a search to make sure that no one else has an intent to use mark out there, or there's no conflicts, and then go for it. So you don't have to wait until it's actually up and running before you procure your trademark. That's a great question.
And tell me, Gregory, what was that again? An intent to use?
It's called, and it's something that, again, it's one of those distinctions that when you have, a lawyer or someone who's familiar with this process, do it for you. But yeah, I'll say it again, it's called an intent to use, meaning I intend to use it in the future.
Okay.
And it's a way to file. It's part of the filing process.
Got it. So we have.
So and that comes into play when you don't have it.
Okay, perfect. So we have a question from Jennifer Matthews. Again, we're going back to trademarks. She says, I was advised by a fellow blogger to use SM after the name of my blog every time I write it. Example, My Beauty Money SM. Do I need to do this, or should I write SM or TM? And that's service mark.
Well, technically,
just for people
in trademark, right? Right. Technically, you're not allowed to use those unless you're actually trademarked or in the process of using it. Technically,
okay.
Right? The trademark office is pretty explicit about that. That if you don't have a trademark, you shouldn't be using those.
Oh, interesting.
Those symbols. But if you do have it, you don't have to use them. It's not once you've filed with the trademark office, you're good to go. It's trademarked. You don't have to put the little. I mean, people put it there so they put it's that extra saying this is marked, so you should know that before you try to use this, it is protected.
Okay.
So, but you don't have to.
Jess has a great question. Is there any other way to tell if a name is trademarked beside the TM next to it? Like, can't you go?
Yes, there is a way.
Okay.
There is a way. And you'd have to, everything is on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office site, and you'd have to do a trademark search. And that's the way you'd find out. It's a trademark search.
Okay, so I am actually going to grab that because the website, I want everybody to see it, is uspto.gov. So let's actually put
.gov, that's the site.
I'm actually going to put it up here. So uspto.gov, so that everybody can have a look at it. I'm going to put it on the screen, so this lives right here. So if you go to that website and search patent search, you will be able to at least get the preliminary search, right? The preliminary.
Well, depends on how good you are at searching databases. If you're really technical minded and have a mind for it, then you can dig in. But that's the surefire way to find if there's another mark.
Got it. Got it.
Or a conflicting mark.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Another quick question. This one is from Isabel, and actually it's a great question as we're nearing the end of our Spreecast. Isabel asked, what are your fees if a blogger would like to seek your trademark expertise? She's very interested in chatting with you, and she appreciates your expert and advice that you're sharing with us tonight. How should someone
Sure.
like us, like bloggers, contact you, work with you? What are some of the basic fees involved?
Well, first of all, I should say that our firm is national, meaning we have offices here and in New York City. So in California, I'm a California licensed attorney. And the answer to that question is it varies. It would depend on what specifically you needed. Like, did you just need basic advice, like on the specifics of your mark, on whether or not to file? Would you need something more in depth, like you received an office action and you need someone to respond to it, or they're going to terminate your trademark application? So fees, when it comes to lawyers, they vary from lawyer to lawyer. And I always say, this isn't really in my best interest to say it, but it's in yours, and I'm going to tell you. You're definitely going to want to shop around because different lawyers charge different prices based on experience and firm size. My firm, we're competitive. We have competitive rates. We're based in San Francisco and New York, and it differs. We typically like people who can afford our
Of
fees.
course.
Makes it much easier.
Yeah.
But it's not prohibitive. It's not cost prohibitive. And I can tell you the fees for trademarking, our fees range, anywhere from the low 200s, and they go up from there. And they go up depending on the complexity of the issue that you need help with.
Got it. But do you recommend bloggers contact an attorney within their own state just because, obviously of different laws and
Well,
Indian
it's
law?
definitely more convenient.
Okay.
Right. It's definitely more convenient, especially if you want to see your attorney face to face, which I always love to do, which is why I love this. I like to see clients and people face to face so they get a feel for you. But it's federal law. So, most attorneys can, in their states can also practice it. It's just um, it would probably be more convenient.
Got it.
Right. So for us, we love California and New York, right?
Perfect.
Because that's where we're at.
Of course.
So,
Okay.
but
Xenia has
you
another
know,
great question. Xenia blogs on WordPress. So does WordPress, do they have any rights to the blog, or does she, nope, it's just a platform, she owns the blog on?
wow. That's a good question. I know this much. I haven't read WordPress's terms of service or terms of use recently. Our firm even has a blog on WordPress called Legally Vogue, and um, we know we own the actual content, but that's a good question. I'd have to look into that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it would be very specific as to yeah. Yeah, I don't want to conjecture.
Right. So what I'm actually, I want to put your blog up on the screen so that everybody can check it out. I'm actually going to put it on both
Sure.
areas just so everybody can have a quick peek. I'll do it on the chat area as well as then under here. Greg, let me just actually quickly look at my notes here. I think, gosh, we went through all of these questions, which is awesome. Is there anything that you think we should, as bloggers or as members of this blogging community within iFabbo, things that we should be aware of, things we should be doing on a legal side that maybe we're not thinking about?
Sure. The trademarks, believe it or not, are actually one of the more straightforward areas of what you as men and women as bloggers do, or what we do. The areas that aren't so straightforward that concern me are areas of slander, or in our cases, libel.
Yep.
And this arises when, let's say, you give an honest review, but a scathing review of a product or a service. And then that company reads it and they get upset and they say, "You've defamed us," and they come after you. So what you have to keep in mind is there's always a balancing act. When you write a blog, you are protected. You have your First Amendment protections. But when you're writing about things that aren't really big, like really big public figures or like medium size or small size things, just be cognizant of how you write it in your tone. I think that's the easiest way to put it. But I can answer questions about it if this has sparked any interest in our viewers or
Yeah, I mean, I think
listeners.
it's something that we definitely try and talk about at iFabbo. In fact, recently we just did a blog post on how to write a proper review, meaning you can have your own opinion.
Yes,
You can write whatever you
sure.
want and say whatever you want, but we always try and tell people to remember that the CEO of the company is always going to always think and know that the CEO of a company is going to be reading what you write. And you can have an opinion as
Right.
long as it is constructive and it's not just, lots of profanity and this and that. And I think it's really important that we kind of talk about that because obviously we're in it and blogging for the reason of being able to express our opinions. But I also think there's a kind of a standard to adhere to that whatever your opinion is, it's constructive, it's professional, it's well thought out. You check spelling, you check grammar, because I think the most hilarious thing is to read a scathing review and it's just riddled with bad spelling mistakes and
And
grammar,
it's riddled
then
with
you
errors.
lose the credibility right
Right.
there. Um, but
Now,
we
yeah,
certainly,
and I don't want to scare you from writing bad reviews.
of course.
I just want you to like hear, right. A good example is I'd like you guys to Google or when you have some time to look into the case of a fellow blogger. Her name was Rachel Kane. That's Rachel space Kane. And Miss Kane was a blogger, and she blogged about Forever 21. And it came to Forever 21's attention. But I'm not going to get into the specifics. But I will say that that's an example of something that might, get you into a little bit of trouble. She fought them, and of course they didn't sue her. She didn't back down, but they did send her a cease and desist, demanding that she take down her blog because it was a parody on their site, and it said some pretty unfavorable things about the site. So I'm not chiming in either way about the right or wrong of what happened, but this is illustrative. Or illustrative
Right.
of some of these issues that we're trying to talk to you about.
Right, absolutely. So we are nearly coming up on our time here for our event tonight. If there is any other last minute questions, what we'd like to do is we're happy to take them. I want to make sure that everybody is able to get in contact with Gregory. You can find him on Twitter. We just found we have his Twitter account right below here. And obviously your website, Gregory, will be embedded in this video for all of our members who weren't able to join us live to see. But we so wanted to thank you for taking time out of your evening and helping us and answering all of our questions. I know that many of us found this very, very, very helpful. And we look forward to
Glad to be of
more
assistance.
series.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for having me, and I wish you all keep blogging, blog away, and
Absolutely.
look
Well,
forward to
thank
reading.
you everybody for tonight. We really appreciate it. And on behalf of Tanya and myself, Tanya's right there saying thank you as well. Her internet's a little slow, but thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And Gregory, thank you again. We really, really appreciate it. And everybody have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.